the girl says to the billionaire, "Hi, sir, your wife hired me as a surrogate before she died." Imagine standing in the lobby of one of the most powerful corporations in the world, clutching a folder that holds secrets capable of changing lives forever. That's exactly where we find Emily Carter, a young woman with trembling hands and a heart racing faster than she'd like to admit. She's dressed simply, worn jeans and a plain blouse, but her presence is anything but ordinary. The words she's rehearsed countless times feel surreal as they sit on the tip of her tongue. "Hi, sir, your wife hired me as a surrogate before she died." These words are about to set off a chain reaction that will unravel years of hidden truths, challenge trust, and redefine what it means to love and sacrifice. The story begins in the gleaming lobby of Blackwell Enterprises, an empire built by Alexander Blackwell, a man whose name is synonymous with wealth, power, and influence. But beneath his polished exterior lies a man still reeling from the tragic loss of his wife, Charlotte. 3 months have passed since her death, yet the grief hangs heavy in the air around him. Emily knows this pain all too well. After all, she had formed a bond with Charlotte over cups of coffee at a small cafe, long before either of them could have imagined how their lives would intertwine so deeply. As Emily waits nervously for Alexander to hear her out, the tension builds, not just for her, but for us as viewers, who can sense that something monumental is about to unfold. At its core, this story explores themes of love, legacy, and the lengths people go to protect those they care about. It asks questions that resonate deeply within each of us. How far would you go to leave behind hope when you're gone? What happens when trust is broken, even if unintentionally? And how do you rebuild when everything you thought you knew turns out to be more complicated than you ever imagined? Through Emily and Alexander's journey, we'll see how these abstract ideas play out in real, human ways. Moments filled with raw emotion, unexpected twists, and quiet revelations. Emily isn't just any stranger walking into Alexander's life. She was handpicked by Charlotte, not only because of her kindness and resilience, but also because of the shared struggles they bonded over during early mornings at Cornerstone Coffee. For 2 years, they talked about dreams, fears, and life's unpredictability. When Charlotte received the devastating news of her terminal illness, she made a decision that would shape the futures of everyone involved, including the child growing inside Emily. This revelation sets the stage for a narrative rich with suspense, as Alexander grapples with whether to believe Emily or dismiss her claims as some elaborate scheme. Alexander Blackwell is no ordinary billionaire. He's fiercely intelligent, driven, and emotionally guarded. A man who has spent his life building empires while cherishing the rare moments of peace he found with Charlotte. Her passing left a void that nothing seemed able to fill. Until now, as Emily speaks, revealing details only someone close to Charlotte could know, cracks begin to form in Alexander's skepticism. Yet, doubt lingers. Could his late wife really keep such a significant secret from him? Or is there another explanation lurking beneath the surface? His internal conflict mirrors our own curiosity, pulling us deeper into the mystery. What makes this story truly compelling is how it weaves together multiple layers of intrigue. There's the undeniable connection between Emily and the baby she carries, a child conceived through embryos, created years ago during happier times for Alexander and Charlotte. Then there's the question of why Charlotte chose to handle everything so discreetly, using different clinics, lawyers, and even her maiden name. Was it merely to spare Alexander additional stress during her final days? Or does her secrecy hint at something darker? As clues slowly come to light, the stakes grow higher, drawing us closer to the truth, while keeping us guessing every step of the way. One of the most poignant aspects of this tale is the exploration of Charlotte's character. Though she may no longer be physically present, her influence looms large over every interaction, decision, and revelation through letters, journals, and memories shared by those who loved her. We begin to understand the depth of her sacrifices. She wasn't just thinking about leaving Alexander with a child. She was ensuring that the child, and Alexander himself, would be protected from potential threats. This protective instinct adds another dimension to the unfolding drama, raising questions about loyalty, betrayal, and the shadows of the past. As Emily and Alexander navigate this emotional minefield, their relationship evolves in unexpected ways. Initially met with suspicion and hostility, Emily's sincerity starts to break through Alexander pearls of anger and grief. Their conversations reveal vulnerabilities neither of them anticipated, forcing them to confront their own biases and assumptions. This dynamic creates moments of genuine humanity amidst the chaos, reminding us that even in the most extraordinary circumstances, people are fundamentally driven by the same desires: to be understood, to belong, and to find meaning in their experiences. But just when it seems like answers might finally be within reach, new complications arise. A fertility clinic's records raise unsettling questions about the authenticity of the documents provided, casting doubt on everything Emily has claimed. Meanwhile, revelations about James Harrington, a former employee turned antagonist, add another layer of complexity to the situation. Is Emily truly innocent, or is she part of a larger conspiracy orchestrated by someone seeking revenge against Alexander? Each twist pulls the narrative tighter, leaving both characters and the audience grasping for clarity. By the time Emily finds herself at Lake Geneva, the place where Alexander and Charlotte's love story began, the tension reaches a breaking point here. Amidst breathtaking scenery and haunting memories, pieces of the puzzle start falling into place. Yet, instead of providing resolution, these discoveries only deepen the mystery. Hidden compartments, cryptic messages, and long-buried secrets force Emily and Alexander to confront the possibility that the truth may be far more intricate and painful than either of them imagined. As the sun sets over the shimmering waters of Lake Geneva, Emily stands on the dock, holding not just the weight of her unborn child, but also the burden of unanswered questions. Behind her, Alexander approaches, carrying a leather-bound journal that promises to shed light on Charlotte's final wishes. But will it bring closure, or ignite a firestorm that changes everything once again? With emotions running high and stakes higher than ever, the scene fades to black, leaving us eager to uncover what happens next. This introduction sets the tone for a gripping emotional journey, blending suspense, heartbreak, and hope into a narrative that keeps you hooked from start to finish. Whether you're drawn to stories of love and sacrifice, fascinated by mysteries layered with intrigue, or simply looking for characters who feel real and relatable, this tale delivers on every front. So stay tuned, because the best and most unpredictable parts of this story are yet to come. As Emily stood on the dock at Lake Geneva, the weight of everything that had happened pressed down on her shoulders. The beauty of the lake, with its shimmering waters and serene surroundings, felt almost mocking, given the storm raging inside her. She had come here searching for answers, hoping to uncover something, anything, that could prove her innocence and clear Charlotte's name. But now, faced with Alexander's arrival, she wasn't sure what to expect. His presence was both comforting and intimidating, a reminder of how much was still unresolved between them. Alexander stepped closer, his expression unreadable. For a moment, he simply stared at her, as if trying to piece together the puzzle she represented. "You said you were following Charlotte's instructions," he began, his voice low but steady. "What exactly did she tell you about this place?" Emily hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. "She mentioned it in passing. Once," Emily admitted, "said it held special meaning for you two, that it was where life began. Not just your relationship, but..." Her voice trailed off, uncertain how to finish the thought. Alexander's eyes softened slightly, and for the first time, Emily saw vulnerability in him. "This is where we came after our first date," he explained, gesturing around the boathouse, "where we talked about the future, the family we wanted to build." He paused, his gaze drifting toward the hidden compartment he'd discovered earlier. "But there's more here than memories. My wife left something behind. Something meant only for me, or perhaps for us." The tension in the air thickened as Alexander retrieved the small leather-bound journal from his coat pocket. Its worn cover bore signs of frequent handling, and Emily could see the effort it took for him to hold it out to her. "Charlotte's oncologist's wife delivered this to me yesterday," he said, his tone heavy with emotion. "It confirms what you've been saying all along. She was terminally ill. She did arrange for you to carry our child, and she did keep it from me." His admission hung in the silence, punctuated only by the gentle lapping of the water against the dock. Relief washed over Emily, but it was short-lived. While the journal validated her story, it also raised new questions. Why had Charlotte gone to such lengths to hide the truth? Why involve separate clinics, lawyers, and even her maiden name? And most importantly, why hadn't she trusted Alexander enough to share her plans with him? These unanswered questions gnawed at Emily, even as Alexander's demeanor shifted from suspicion to regret. "I don't understand," Alexander murmured, flipping through the pages of the journal. "She writes about James Harrington, about discovering his betrayal and gathering evidence against him. She feared he would retaliate if she revealed the surrogacy arrangement, especially after learning her cancer had returned." His jaw tightened, anger flashing in his eyes. "She sacrificed everything to protect us, to protect you. But why didn't she trust me to handle it?" Emily's heart ached for him, seeing the pain etched into his face. "Maybe she didn't want you distracted," she suggested softly. "You were in the middle of that merger in Singapore. She knew how much it meant to you, to the company. Maybe she thought keeping this secret was the only way to ensure the baby, and you would be safe." Alexander nodded slowly, though doubt lingered in his expression. "Even so, she should have told me. We promised each other no secrets. Not after everything we'd been through." His voice cracked, betraying the depth of his grief. "I loved her more than anything. I would have dropped everything for her. For this." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The weight of Charlotte's decisions settled over them like a shadow, binding them together in shared loss and confusion. Then, almost instinctively, Alexander moved to the back wall of the boathouse, running his fingers along the wooden paneling until he found what he was looking for. A nearly invisible latch. With a soft click, a hidden compartment swung open, revealing a sealed envelope and a small jewelry box. Emily watched in stunned silence as Alexander carefully opened the envelope, his hands trembling as he read its contents. Whatever was written, there seemed to hit him hard. Tears welled in his eyes, though he blinked them away quickly. When he finally looked up, his expression was one of awe and sorrow. "She knew," he whispered. "About James. About the corporate. Espionage. About everything. She was protecting us. From him, from the world, from ourselves. Curiosity got the better. 1704 Alexander's revelation about James Harrington sent a chill through Emily. She had warned Charlotte about James over a year ago, during one of their late-night talks at Cornerstone Coffee. Back then, it was just idle venting. Her frustration with his manipulative behavior and shady dealings. But Charlotte had listened intently, asking questions that seemed casual at the time, but now felt calculated. "You were protecting us," Alexander said finally, his voice heavy with realization. Charlotte knew James wouldn't stop at corporate espionage. If he found out about the surrogacy, about the baby. His words trailed off, but the implication hung in the air. Emily shuddered, imagining what might have happened if James had discovered her connection to Alexander sooner. The hidden compartment's contents painted a clearer picture. Not only had Charlotte uncovered James's betrayal, but she'd also gathered evidence to ensure he could never harm them, or their future child. The locket, delicate and shimmering, held more than just a photograph. It carried Charlotte's hope for the family she wouldn't live to see grow. As Alexander held it up to the light, Emily noticed an inscription inside. "For my son, who will always know how much I loved him." Tears welled in her eyes as she realized the depth of Charlotte's sacrifice. It wasn't just about leaving behind a child. It was about ensuring that child would be safe, cherished, and surrounded by love, even without her. With the truth laid bare, Alexander's demeanor shifted entirely. Gone was the cold, suspicious billionaire who had accused Emily of fraud. In his place stood a grieving husband, an expectant father, determined to honor his wife's final wishes. "We need to end this," he said firmly, slipping the journal and evidence into his bag. "James can't keep threatening everything Charlotte built. Not anymore." Together, they devised a plan to expose James's crimes, using the information Charlotte had painstakingly compiled. It was risky, especially with Emily still carrying the baby, but neither of them could stomach the idea of letting James walk away unpunished. The confrontation came 2 weeks later, orchestrated carefully to catch James off guard. Using leaked details from Alexander's legal team, they lured him to a meeting under the pretense of negotiating a secret deal. When James arrived, arrogant and unsuspecting, he was greeted instead by federal agents armed with warrants. The evidence against him was damning. Stolen documents, forged signatures, and recorded threats implicating him in both corporate sabotage and attempted extortion. As the handcuffs clicked around his wrists, James glared at Alexander and Emily, his expression twisted with rage. "You think this is over?" he spat. "You'll regret crossing me." But his bravado rang hollow, even to himself. With James behind bars, the weight of fear lifted, allowing Emily and Alexander to focus on the life growing between them. Over the following months, their relationship evolved from wary allies to something deeper, a partnership forged in shared grief and mutual respect. Emily continued working at the diner, though Alexander insisted on hiring additional security to ensure her safety. He also set up a scholarship fund in Charlotte's name to support aspiring nurses like Emily, a gesture that spoke volumes about how far he'd come since their first meeting. When Thomas was born, 6 months later, the moment was nothing short of magical. Under the same blue sky where Alexander and Charlotte's love story began, Emily handed the tiny bundle to his father. For the first time, Alexander saw the perfect blend of his and Charlotte's features in their son's face. Holding Thomas close, he whispered, promises of protection, love, and guidance. Emily watched silently, her heart swelling with gratitude for the woman who had brought them together. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting Lake Geneva in hues of gold and pink, Emily reflected on everything they'd endured. Charlotte's legacy wasn't confined to wealth or power. It lived in the bond she'd created, the lives she'd touched, and the family she'd left behind. Through pain and mistrust, she had woven a tapestry of love that transcended death itself. And as Thomas gazed up at his father with those clear blue eyes, Emily knew one thing for certain: some gifts are worth every sacrifice. The journey hadn't been easy, but it had taught them all something invaluable: that love, trust, and resilience can overcome even the darkest storms. As Alexander pushed the small sailboat onto the water, Emily smiled, feeling a sense of peace she hadn't known was possible. They weren't just building a family. They were honoring Charlotte's memory in the most beautiful way imaginable. And in doing so, they had found healing, not just for themselves, but for each other.